So this is our August virtual identification table, and we're going into our iNaturalist MAW project. And just as a reminder, for those of you who have iNaturalist, it should be pretty easy for you to find this project. So this is a clipping of my kind of homepage on iNaturalist. It should look similar for you guys, although maybe a little different feed. And if you start typing in mycology or mycological, immediately we're the first thing that pops up. So good for us. And then there are two choices. You can either pick view observations, where you would go straight to see a list of our observations, or you can put about, which will take you to our front page. Um, so first I'll show you our front page, and then I'll show you our observations. So this is the front page. If you hit about, you would come here, and this is where you would go if you are not yet in the project and you want to join. You can see where it says leave. For me, it would say join for you. Obviously, I'm not going to leave because it's awesome. And we would love to have you join. Once you've joined, our project will automatically kind of suck up your observations if they are within a certain geographical area, which is not just the DMV. It's a little bit beyond it. Like I noticed it was capturing some from observations from the West Virginia Mushroom Festival, which was this weekend. And I was excited to see those. Anyway, you can see we have a lot of observations, more than 60,000 observations in our project. And I think I was looking, I mean, that's at least 10,000 more than I think in the fall. So I feel like we're making great progress. We have, I guess, like about 286 people who have joined, and so far, 220 something have observed. We have a lot of identifiers helping out, and almost 2,000 species. I'm sure we can get there. This is what you would get if, instead of clicking on about, if you clicked on observations in the search, you would just get straight to a list of our most recent observations. And that will be different, obviously, every day, because they'll just pop up as they come. So going through our observations, it is bolete season. It's been all that rain has been great for boletes. And I noticed that there were a lot of these boletes that we call Aureo, Aureo, like the sun. And that's why I had the weird Teletubby sun as my first slide, because I wanted to tease this idea of how to separate some of the local species of Aureoboletus. There are more than just these four species, but these are, I would say, the most common in our area. And as you can see, they all, look a little bit different, but it can be hard to necessarily tell them apart. So hopefully I can help with that. The first one that I wanted to talk about this is like kind of the classic Areoboletus auriferus, which I think basically means like yellow bolete, yellow pores. So double yellow, and or maybe sun bolete, sun pores. Um, and this one is a photograph by Isabella. She did a great job as always capturing it. You can kind of see that the cap here is shiny. So that's something I'm noticing. And you can see that this is a little older specimen. So instead of being bright yellow, it looks like it's a little duller, probably because the spores have started dropping from the tubes. This is Jeff DC, and this is Oreoboletus annexus. And here is a young specimen. You can see how bright yellow the pore surface is. Just as a reminder for everyone, what makes boletes different from all other mushrooms is from the top, they look like a hamburger bun or a potato. And if you take a look under the hood, instead of having gills, they have these tiny little holes. And if you cut through, you find out that these are not just holes, they are actually long tubes. And the tubes basically produce the spores, and the spores fall down the tubes. So they're really relying on gravity there. This is a gorgeous one. I think Tom Morris found several of these this year, and I just love it. I actually had to go to North Carolina to see this because I wasn't able to find it around here. So good on you, Tom. But yeah, I found it for the first time when I was in Highlands for the Bassett's class, where I learned a lot about boletes, because if you want to know about boletes, you got to read the Bassett's books. Um, Boletes of Eastern North America, second edition just came out last year. Fantastic resource just to plug it. So this is Areoboletus araflamius, and I'm just noticing that it looks like the cap, it looks a little yellow and powdery, like um, unlike the smooth cap of the Auriparus, the sour sour Areoboletus. This one, it looks a little sort of like powdery on top. And then the last one, every time I see this, I'm like, you don't have to put on a red light because it's Roxanne's bolete. Um, and it always makes me sing the song Roxanne. This is pretty common in Rock Creek Park, and it looks different than some of the other Areobolituses because the pore surface is not bright yellow in the same way. And I think people often don't know how to identify this. But I thought this was a beautiful picture of it. So I wanted to share that. Here are some descriptions of these. So I tried to draw your attention. This is all kind of culled from Michael Kuo's website, mushroomexpert.com, which hopefully you all are using because it's an incredible free resource. But I wanted to sort of point out the most notable features of these things. So Auriparus, like I said, it looked shiny to me in Isabella's picture, and that's because when it's fresh, the cap is viscid, which is another word for like sticky and wet. And then when it dries and gets older, it can look a little shiny. Sometimes things can get stuck to viscid caps, so you may see like little pieces of leaves stuck to them. And it's sour, I guess, if you taste it. But the next one, Areoboletus annexus, that one really is notable for growing in clusters. That was the one from Jeff's picture, and with the really bright yellow pores. It used to be called Boletus cespitosus. Cespitose basically means growing in clusters. So, people say this has a bad smell. They say it smells kind of like old rotten meat, and I've heard people say that's a way to distinguish it. But then I've also heard people say that that's not always the case. So I guess smell is very subjective. I would go by the fact that it's cespitose because that's a good way to distinguish it. And also the cap is neither sticky nor powdery, and it's also not bright yellow. It's like kind of dull. Nothing to write home about. The next one is Areoboletus araflamius, which is the gorgeous one right here that we were just talking about. This one is just bright orange all over. And I think, it has sort of, you call it like reticulation or netting, but I would also more say they're almost like lines or ridges. It's like something in between. It's not really reticulation or netting in like the most um, pure sense of the word. So I think maybe referring to the stem ornamentation as like lines or ridges is a better way to put it. Just to go back and show you. Do you see how it's like kind of lines more than the fine netting that you would see on like a porcini? That one, the notable thing to me is the cap, like I said, has this kind of orange powdery surface, and it turns your fingers really orange yellow. So that's how you know you're holding it. And then the last one is Roxanne. And I think this is most notable for being, pretty small, like really pale yellow pores, not bright yellow. But if you look at the top of the stipe, it will kind of have an orange zone. None of these should really be staining. A lot of boletes, if you cut them in half, will turn blue, but these should not be doing that. Interestingly, one of Tom's photos, he does have uh, Araflamius looking like it's turning blue. I wanted to ask him if maybe that knife was dirty. Well, maybe he had cut another bolete. I don't know.
Nope, that knife was not dirty, and it really made me wonder what I found.
Well,
So,
then it's mushrooms behaving badly. Add that to the list.
yeah. But if you go in, I put a note on that saying
I
this
saw it.
this
Yeah,
shouldn't have turned blue.
exactly. No, I
So,
saw your note and I was like, correct. It definitely shouldn't have. And I was, I'm always trying to think because I have seen situations where a knife will have something left over from the last
Yeah,
thing. But
yeah,
then
yeah.
I even looked at what Tom had seen that same day, and he didn't see anything that was blue staining. So I had already concluded that this is just a freakish mushroom. So maybe something that the club should sequence. Um, anyway, thank you, Tom. You're appearing all over my ID table because I loved your pictures that you've been
Thank you.
posting. I think this was found. Mitch, can you confirm that this was found on your walk?
Yes, we found that
Terrific.
Saturday. Mhm.
Excellent. That's what I thought, just based on where it was and that multiple people saw it. So I just thought this was really beautiful specimen. Looking at these, you can tell these are like call them like earth tongues. Um, and here you can see that they're sort of look like they have some texture, like some hairiness to them, and that's sort of a giveaway. Um, this is Paul Kala. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. We've corresponded somewhat and did some really nice microscopy work on this. And so I was super excited, not just when I saw this gorgeous picture, but then when I saw what it has microscopy too. I mean, what a dream observation. So rock on, Paul. Um, this is the spore close up, which is really cool. This ascospore is more than 100 oh my gosh, I'm gonna get it wrong if it's 100 more than 100 micrometers long, I think. Let me confirm that that's the case and not nanometers, but I think 100 micrometers long. Um, and as you can see, it's all funky. It has these walls, which you can call septae, and then they kind of separate it into these compartments. And if you count, there are 7 walls and there are separating it into 8 compartments. You can also see each compartment seems to have like kind of little oil droplets in it. So that's sort of cool. That's what those little circles are, if you can see. Really nice microscopy. So so initially this was identified as Trichoglossum hirsutum, which is a great first call because I think that's like a pretty common earth tongue. And I would say the distinguishing thing, if you see black crazy things like this coming out of the soil, they could be geoglossum or they could be trichoglossum. Geo is just earth and tricho is just hair, like trichotillomania, pulling your hair out. Well, trichoglossum hirsutum, which is like hairy hair tongue, it's like everything is really redundant today. It's like if you didn't know it was hairy, it's hirsute. It's wearing a hairsuit. Anyway, this is a common species, but when I saw Paul's pictures, I thought this does not look like what I used to seeing. It just something about it looked like a little different. So I tagged a really great ASCO my seat scholar, Malcolm Greaves. Um, on iNaturalist. I mean, I only know him from tagging him in a million things on iNaturalist, but here are some of the things I tag him in. I tag him in Trichoglossum, Geoglossum, and I tag him in Scutellinia, which are those beautiful eyelash cups. But I think you can probably tag him in a lot of things, but he knows, yeah, so he knows just a lot about Ascos. And he identified this as Trichoglossum octopartitum, which is like 8 parts. And Paul had a question that you can't see here in a comment that said, why is it called that? Basically. I hadn't heard of the species, so I looked it up. This is a great resource for those of you, if you hear someone say, a Latin name and you're like, what the heck is that? I never heard of it before. You do what I do, go to the website for Index Fungorum, and it will give you just some basic good information. So here it tells me this was published in 1940, it tells you where it was published, who published it, and where they found it, Honduras. So that's interesting. Obviously we're not in Honduras, but we're not that far. It's at least in our hemisphere. So, that's cool. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's not. We don't know. DNA could help us. Wanted to find out, like, well, is this really, like, how did he ID it? And I found this key, but oh, the key was in French. So then I used Google Translate to translate the key to English. And what made this stand out is that it has these very long ascospores, right? It was micrometers, like I said. They're longer than 100 micrometers. the number of septa or walls also is what distinguishes it. And octopartitum refers to the 8 parts of the ascospore. Can be confusing because it's 7 walls, but it's 8 parts. So it could be called, I mean, they could have called it like septa, whatever the word for wall is, but they called it octo. Anyway, that's all I have for IDing, but I wanted to share the observation of the month, which honestly I picked just because it was beautiful. But then right as I was about to, well, I was like practicing showing my slides, and it, Tom pointed out that this has actually been renamed. And so then I was like, oh, well, this is actually of interest. Tom McCoy pointed that out. This is Tom Moore's observation. So here's Tom Moore's observation of what we have all been calling Clavaria zollingeri, um, which is interesting. And I was like, oh, it's vulnerable. How interesting it's vulnerable because it's not, I mean, it's uncommon in the sense that like it's extremely exciting to find it and it's beautiful, but I've seen it a couple times. Like it's not super rare. So I was like, why is it vulnerable? And then when I searched, it looked like it's really rare, like in Europe, but less rare on the East Coast. And now, then Tom McCoy reminded me that they had just done some name changing, and I realized, yes, it isn't. I had seen this thing that Alan Rockefeller made, which is this phylogenetic tree, which I'm sure we'll probably get into in Conrad's presentation, so I don't do any spoiling for it. But what we really have is Clavaria amethystina. And that's a nice name too. Actually, I like it better because I assume Zollinger is a person, whereas amethystina is a color, and it's the actual color of the mushroom. So I support any movement from a name that isn't descriptive to a name that is descriptive. The most important thing I just wanted to show is this is a beautiful mushroom. So thank you, Tom Moore, for finding the mushroom. Thank you, Tom McCoy, for reminding me that it's not what I thought it was. And thank you for listening to this TED Talk.
And thank you, Annie,